Today we're talking about the number one most, what the hell are we talking about now?
Today we're going to be talking about why people haven't heard of this concept, or why people haven't heard about the benefits and advantages of whole life insurance.
Right. The number one secret of the financial industry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what we're going to say.
That was our clickbait title.
This is the number one secret the wealthy don't want you to know.
Yeah, don't tell the lizard people, don't tell the Rothschilds, don't tell the global elitists of the world that this will solve all your financial problems. I just got back from a seminar, like literally this morning. We're recording this video. It's 1 p.m. EST. I was talking to people about, what we preach about infinite banking and whole life insurance more specifically. And they're like, wow, Matt, this is amazing. I need to sit down with you. But why haven't I heard about this? And so, I said, well,
before you go there, what did you say that made them say that?
Well, I talked about how, it's because everyone sells term insurance nowadays, right? Like people understand term insurance. People have, mortgage insurance on their homes. Like they don't have whole life insurance. And if they did, it's usually like an older fellow who has whole life insurance. It's not a young kid who says, yeah, I have whole life insurance. I leverage it for my main expenses every month for my credit card and stuff like that. My auto and my bills. And I use it to invest my money, not into the policy, but I use the loans to pay for my investments, or to flow into my investments and then pay myself back, right? Or pay the insurance company back. Can't say that. I think what most people, to answer your question about, what got people interested in asking the question, like, why haven't I heard about this, is I talked about the equity you build up in this policy, right? So, you're not just paying for insurance, you're paying for insurance and also building up that cash surrender value and cash value inside the policy. And people are like, what? I can do this? Like I've been paying term insurance for the last 25 years while I could have been doing this instead. And then not only that, I talk about how you could, when you purchase whole life insurance, you lock in that exact premium for the rest amount of the policy. So it's for the rest of the years of that policy. So, I mean, if your premiums are $1,000 a year for the year, and you fund it for life, you'll be paying that much money for the rest of your life. A portion goes into building up equity, and then a portion goes to life insurance. And people just don't know that. And so, is it a conspiracy theory? Do the global elitists really not want you knowing about this? Maybe, right. Maybe not. But I think it also has to do with just misinformation, people and advisors and agents not giving the full story or not being educated in this way. And I think that's what it comes down to.
So I want to give a little bit of context to sort of the beginning of this video, because we talked about doing this video on this subject, which is why have I never heard about it before? And I kind of quipped, and I actually think like it was a serious joke that I made. When I said, the next time someone asks you why haven't I heard of it before, tell them because you're not rich enough.
Yeah.
Right. And then you were like, yeah, lizard people and all that sort of stuff. And we thought it was quite funny. And we thought, oh, well, we can do this clickbaity thing. But I genuinely believe that a lot of people recognize that whole life insurance, especially when you compare it to term insurance, it's much more expensive. Right. And so what a lot of agents will do is they will look for wealthier people to present this solution to, right? And I get, like, that makes sense to me. Like I know that if you're putting $1 million a year into a whole life policy, it's much more impressive than putting $1,000 a year, because the difference between the amount that you're spending on insurance versus the amount, to your point, that's going into cash value is a lot greater.
And yeah, you do have to have like some financial and understanding, like a good basic of financial literacy when you want to implement a concept like this. It's super hard to explain this concept to someone who's more of a middle class thinker and say, let me pay off my debt first, because leveraging the cash value, you have to understand using other people's money, taking out good debt versus bad debt, the ability to pay off loans, having free and clear cash flow. And I think a lot of agents just don't want to have to worry about that potentially. And that's what makes us different. And that's why we're doing it. Because that's another question I got is, so why are you only selling life insurance? It's because this is my competitive advantage. No one else is selling whole life insurance when I'm out there showing people and educating them properly on the benefits of it, and then, working into their situation. And I just don't think a lot of agents want to deal with that.
Yep. Yeah. And it's interesting that you put that spin on it, where it's more about sort of like an abundant way of thinking about the world, or just like a different mindset that you have. It's kind of like the rich dad, poor dad thing, right? Whereas like a lot of us, we were just taught, go to work, put your 40 hours in, save into RSPs, pay off your mortgage, and save for your kids' education. And there was these different buckets that all these different things had to go in, and it was kind of run by government programs and that sort of thing. And we have a different take on that. Yeah. And I think it really draws from more of the rich dad mindset, which is, it's okay to use other people's money. It's okay to borrow to invest. In fact,
pay yourself first.
It's called leveraging for a reason, right? Like a lever is something that allows you to use, a small amount of your force to accomplish a great amount of work. And that's really what whole life insurance does. And it's typically been sold only to the wealthy because they understand it better.
Absolutely.
And I think it's laziness really on the part of agents, because they're like, oh, it's too complicated and people won't understand it. BS.
Yeah.
If you sit down and you show people, especially if you can use really good analogies, maybe some diagrams, right? And you just have to build the trust with that person, and they'll sit down and they'll listen, and you'll change their life.
Yeah. You know what I realized too? It's like, when everyone's going this way, the money could be made this way. There's more money going against, or not going against, but rejecting the herd and going this way, finding your own path. And I felt like doing this, I had to kind of make my own path. I'm like, okay, well, I have to it's like climbing a wall. You have to jump here. Like, you have to find your own way. It's not going to be, this easy ladder to climb up, but there is a way to do it. And because it's harder doesn't mean it's not going to, it's going to bring you more income. Like, I think this definitely will, it separates the competition. So like, I have less competition, but it's also a little bit more difficult on my end.
Well, it's interesting. I love that analogy, Matt, because it's also the same is true for your clients, right? Like, following that, very laid out path, RSPs, RESPs, like all of the things that we're supposed to do, pay off your mortgage, all these things, which, again, I'm not saying those are bad things.
No,
I just think that if you're just following that ladder, well, that's great, right? But again, it's going to take you in a certain direction that's a very predictable direction. Yeah, and it's limiting. What you've done is you've said, oh, wait a minute, there's these handholds over here. What happens if I go off of this? And it's a bit scary sometimes to go off that beaten path. But that's how you get to those vistas and those sunset spots that nobody else has seen before, right? And that are unique to you. And I think that's really what whole life insurance and the process of infinite banking. It's called infinite banking for a reason, because there's an infinite number of ways that this can be utilized. And each person, it's fascinating to me how each person uses it a bit different. And I think that's really the power in it. And it takes an agent like yourself who's willing to get off of that ladder as well, because you have to lead. You have to find that path so other people can follow. And then at some point, they're going to branch off on their own and find other cool little spots. But you have to get them to that area of the mountain first, if I can continue to push that analogy.
So, like, do you think that answers people's questions? It's like, why haven't I heard of this? Why has this not been told to me before? And I think it's just, it's kind of, again, it's kind of been, the information has been misinterpreted, told in the incorrect way. And, people are like, oh, just buy term and invest difference. Or, I
have one more reason if you're interested.
Go for it.
Our society has a ridiculous relationship with death.
True.
Like we hide it away. We pretend it's not going to happen. We all act like we're immortal, right? Whereas more Eastern cultures, like, they recognize that death is a transition, and yes, it's sad when it happens to someone that we love, and we don't wish that on anyone, but it's not the end.
Yep.
It's not a terrible thing, and in fact, there's a lot of benefit to individuals to contemplate your own death and think about that, because
Yep.
it really makes you appreciate today and maybe get you off your ass to do some of the things that you wouldn't normally do. You're like, man, if I knew that I was going to die tomorrow, yeah, I'd probably call up that old friend and forgive them, or I'd probably, spend a little bit more time with my loved ones, or whatever the case may be. Work a bit harder, maybe knowing, oh, if I could finish that thing before I die, I'd be really happy. Like that sort of thing. And so as soon as you bring up insurance, people are like, oh my God, death. I don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's awkward for the person who has to talk about it. I still
Very
find
true.
it awkward.
Because we're not
for the
just
person who has to receive it.
Yeah, we're not just selling. Like, the reason why I'm even in this industry is to utilize this concept and show people how to use this concept. And to be able to do that, I have to sell insurance at heart. I do have to sell insurance. It's whole life insurance in which I'm selling. And as soon as I mentioned that, some people, you know what? Funny enough, not going to lie, I haven't run into that issue yet. People are like, oh, don't talk to me about whole life insurance. But I get a lot of people will down the road. It's like, oh, I already have life insurance. Don't need to talk. But the thing is, people do have a problem with it. But I know you can't ever replace someone's death. Like, it's just like when someone's gone, they're forever gone. But it makes it that much more copable, if that's a word, to deal with that death when you have something incentivizing it. It's like, okay, I can cope with it. I don't have to go to work right now. I have some, backing right now during this coping period, right?
I have a way of saying this that I think you'll like, right?
Yeah.
Having a bit of money come in when someone passes away
does
not make it any easier emotionally, right? But would you want that emotional devastation to be coupled with financial devastation as well? So what insurance really does is it prevents it from getting much, much worse. Because emotional devastation, that person's gone now, they got to deal with that, and now you add financial hardship and ruin, it's going to make that so much harder. So yes, money does not make it better, but it prevents it from getting much, much worse.
Yeah. And then also on top of that, we're also planning ahead for a lot of people. So even if that death never comes, which hopefully it never does, we are adding value to your life beyond term insurance, beyond any other type of insurance. We're showing you how exactly the wealthy have been using this concept with whole life insurance, leveraging against it to buy more assets, to build generational wealth throughout multiple generations. This is what that concept's good for. And I think the reason why we're talking about the elites and why they don't want you knowing about this, if you guys don't know, banks own billions of dollars in whole life insurance, bank-owned life insurance. It's essentially the same thing. And they do the exact same strategies, just in their own little twist way. I'm not going to say twisted way. They put a
twist on it.
They put a twist on the way that we show our clients, right? So, it's like the elites always will want their own, their power, and they want to mitigate yours. But I'm not going to say that's the exact reason, but it could hedge that way a little bit. It could lean a little bit that way.
I mean, it's entirely possible that when this strategy was formulated, they made it as complex and as complicated as possible, so that people didn't use it as much. Like, it's we don't want because again, this is 175 years old, and
more, right?
A much different attitude, like more of a sort of class system. Back then, they're like, oh, we don't want the peasants having access to this, so let's make it as complex as possible. But now we have things like cryptocurrency has emerged in the world, and people's understanding of that complexity has actually made it easier to understand whole life insurance. So I really think that we're moving into a renaissance.
Yep.
But I really expected you to talk when I talk about the death thing. One of the interesting things about the infinite banking concept and sort of the way we approach whole life insurance is it's actually much more about the living benefits.
Yeah.
Right. And it's almost like when you look at what you can do with a whole life insurance policy, just on its own, it's amazing. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and by the way, if you die, you get a bunch of money too. Like it's almost potentially for some people an afterthought or a bonus, the death benefit. So that's how you know it's a very well designed product.
Yeah.
But really the essential main component of it is not so much part of the process that we're even talking about.
Yeah. I should have mentioned that. Like it is life insurance at the end of the day. Yes, we can't get around it. It is life insurance. We need we use this as a tool, right? So instead of using it as, okay, just if I die, I'll get paid out, or my estate or my beneficiary will get paid out. I can now build equity with this. I can use it on my balance sheet. I can use it within my business. I can use it for the living benefits instead of just thinking death. I have to pay this certain amount. Maybe I won't. This money might be going to no use for me. Basically, with term insurance, it's like if I don't die, I get no benefits. With whole life, I can use it, to buy a house down the road. I can use it to buy a car. I can use it to buy groceries. I can use it to, leverage for investing and all that other stuff. Really,
and should.
But I'm just saying, like we said before, it's called infinite banking for a reason. So we hope that answers your questions. Dean, do you have anything else to add? I think we're going to wrap up the video right there.
The only other thing I was going to say is I look back, I kind of wonder, is that why not infinite banking, but whole life insurance itself was created? Because you look back and originally all insurance was term, and there was very smart people involved in this industry, and they probably looked around and said, you know what, some people actually don't really care what happens after they die. Like, I'm dead. Why do I care? We need to come up with a product that provides benefit while they're alive. And because these companies are so old, they've been able to get all of these things baked into the tax code. So there's a reason why the growth inside this policy is tax-free, even to a corporation. By the way, there's no other way for you to grow passive income inside your corporation and not be taxed every year on that. Whole life insurance is like an RSP or a 401k for your business. That's massive, right? And they were able to do all that because they had influence going back 150, 175 years, right? So it's if you've never looked at this, it's really worth. I don't even care if you don't even do it with Matterai. Like, obviously, we'd love to help people do this. It's our passion. But go talk to whoever. Your brother does insurance. Your one of your cousins. Like, you probably know someone who does.
Be weary. Or when I say that, like, when I tell people, like, I don't care if you even go with me. I just want to make sure you're aware of that this could be possible. But a lot of even agents and advisors don't know exactly, like, they've heard about it. They know you can build equity. They know that there is a cash value associated with these policies, but yet they still don't know how to utilize it perfectly. And so that's why
what would you suggest then, Matt? How could someone make sure that
you have to have a specialized advisor, someone who knows how to design these, is using them. If you ask an advisor or an agent, a life insurance agent, ask them if they have whole life insurance. Do you utilize whole life insurance on your balance sheet or in your individual life? And if they don't say, yes, I do, or no, I don't, that's where you can make your decision. It's because, would you take advice from someone who doesn't utilize their own advice? Right? That's harsh, but it's true. It's like, if someone's selling me a house, or let's say it's like people saying, oh man, you should rent, but they own the entire block and homes. It's like, you just want me to rent off.
If you go to the Chevy dealership and the guy's driving a Mercedes, it's a little weird.
Right? Exactly.
Hey, Matt, do you own whole life insurance, Matt?
I do. Do you, Dean?
Not only do I have it, but every one of my children, I have 4 children, and there's a whole life insurance policy on each one of them.
Exactly. And in our next video, we'll talk exactly why your child needs whole life insurance, why children are the best candidates for whole life insurance, other than business owners and investors and all that. You can lock in premiums on a child and they will never change. It's basically guaranteeing your child to be a millionaire in their lifetime and create generational wealth for the next generation. But that's in the next video. So, make sure to subscribe for more. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next video.